Artificial intelligence. It seems to be everywhere at the moment, and there's a growing number of websites offering different AI models for people to experiment with. They all work in a similar way, provide it with input data of some sort, and it combines that with some learned information to create new output data, whether that's a photorealistic image of a former Prime Minister getting up close and personal with a frog, or source code for a piece of computer software. School teachers now use it to plan lessons and set homework. Students also use it to do their homework. Exam boards use it to check essays for plagiarism and to see if an essay was created using artificial intelligence. Anyway, a few weeks ago I thought I'd try using it to create song lyrics, and I'd like to say the results were fantastic. Sadly, they weren't, and that's not what this video is about anyway. Last year, I posted a video about my song Tunnel Vision, in which I talked about how lockdown restrictions had affected the recording process, particularly when it came to recording the female vocal part, which was sung by my friend Vanessa Clark. To record her voice, I sent her a copy of the backing track to work with, and a digital recorder like this one, so she could record herself at home. She did this in a room with no acoustic treatment, over the space of several days, using just the built-in microphones on the recorder. The performance you hear in the finished track was compiled using individual phrases from several of those recordings joined together, but because the microphone position changed from day to day, each of those recordings sounds slightly different from the last. The previous video looks in some detail at the techniques used to disguise inconsistencies in the sound. Although the result was reasonably successful, I've never been entirely happy with the quality of the recording. Of course, lockdown restrictions are no longer an issue, so I could easily get Vanessa to come and re-record the track here in the studio. The acoustics are good, and I would use the same large diaphragm microphone that I use for recording my own vocals. However, although the sound quality would be much better, the musical performance would be different, and as much as I might want to improve the recording quality, I don't want to change that particular vocal performance, because I like it. Now, thanks to AI, there is a different way to solve that problem. Adobe have recently introduced a new website feature called Adobe Podcast. It's currently in beta, which means it's not perfect yet. However, it is completely free to use, although that could possibly change in the future. To use it, you first need to create an account on the Adobe Podcast website. Once there, it's just a case of navigating to a tool called Enhance Speech and dropping your audio file onto the web page. What comes back sounds like the same recording, but made in a properly controlled studio environment with decent microphones. Normally I make videos using a good quality condenser microphone just out of shot, off the bottom of the frame. In this segment, you're only hearing the sound from the mic on the back of the iPhone that I use to record the video. There are no other microphones hidden anywhere. I've also invited one of my biggest fans to come along and make some noise for me, so all of which should result in some pretty poor audio quality. Now let's hear what happens when I put the audio from this segment into Adobe Podcast's Speech Enhancer. In this segment, you're only hearing the sound from the mic on the back of the iPhone that I use to record the video. There are no other microphones hidden anywhere. I've also invited one of my biggest fans to come along and make some noise for me, so all of which should result in some pretty poor audio quality. And assuming that worked, I think you'll agree that the improvement in the sound quality is pretty amazing. One thing I've noticed is that it occasionally truncates words, cutting off consonants at the beginning or end, but overall I think the results are impressive. So much for the spoken word. How does it cope with singing? Let's listen again to that composite vocal performance with all its inconsistencies. Here's the part in isolation with no effects or equalization.
Another hopeless day with nothing for me, fighting to make my way against the tide.
Now let's hear what the Adobe Podcast AI makes of it.
All of these people choose to ignore me. I'm overwhelmed by all the pain I feel inside.
That's quite an amazing difference. It sounds much smoother and altogether warmer with none of the unwanted ambient sound reflections. As with the spoken word, there are a couple of places where consonants have been lost, But because the replacement audio file is perfectly aligned with the original, it's really simple to cut some of those details from the old track and paste them onto the new one. As I was already editing the song, I decided this would be a good opportunity to make some subtle changes to the female harmony vocals. Vanessa didn't actually record any harmony vocals. Instead, I copied her track into a piece of software called Melodyne, which allows the pitch of each individual note to be changed, and I used this to create a harmony vocal, which was added to the song alongside the main vocal. The problem with backing vocals generated in this way is that they are too precise, which means they can sound a bit fake.
I listen to my pounding heart as the crowd is parted.
To get around that, I moved the harmony vocal in time so that it was slightly early, just a few milliseconds ahead of the main vocal. Then I added a delay plug-in to the track, not a fixed delay, but one which used a low-frequency oscillator to shift the delay very slightly over time. The result of this is that some of the time the harmony is a few milliseconds ahead of the main vocal, and at other times it's a few milliseconds behind.
I listen to my pounding heart as the crowd is parted, something moving live below me. There's no turning back.
This to me sounds much more natural, as it mimics what happens when two people sing together, listening and responding to each other. So here's the whole of that vocal performance in context.
I'm overwhelmed by all the pain I feel inside. I listen to my pounding heart as the crowd is parted, something moving live below me. There's no turning back. This is the perfect moment to end the life I started. I feel no fear of flying, floating, falling free.
A new mix of this song will be available to my patrons in the coming weeks, and I'll also make it available on Bandcamp with the original album download. I'm currently working on some new music, which will be available on Patreon first. It's not finished yet, so for now, content yourselves with a short clip of me using the lid of a flight case as a percussion instrument. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll be back soon.